Okay, here we are, and this one is really more for me. Let's make it be more for me so it doesn't really matter, about the quality. Well, it's more for me so it doesn't matter about the quality. That's funny, right? That's a funny way to start something. But this is called Getting My Way Out of Here. Now, today I was doing my taxes, but, doing my taxes, right? I was doing their taxes, their extortions. However, TurboTax basically took a form that Massachusetts had sent me indicating how much they had paid me for last year's taxes. See, I guess they're doing that now. I don't know, or that seems like what it is. And I called them to check it wasn't some kind of unemployment fraud, and they said no. It was just, I think the woman said like and she gave me a quick answer, and I talked to her quickly, thank goodness. But she's like, well, yeah, it's just that's just us telling you how much you got back last year from us. Okay. So that's weird. So they're gonna charge me on that. They just charge me on that, and then they charge me on that, and they just keep. I don't know. We're gonna take every bit of money. We're gonna tax the money we get you back from taxing the money we whatever. Anyway, what I found is that TurboTax seemed to refuse to consider that anything other than unemployment benefits. So they were like, well, you got this unemployment money. And it got to the point where it was like, I was owing like about $200 to Massachusetts for having worked there for a few weeks in an internship and then perhaps getting this. So I don't know exactly, maybe almost that entire 200 is from the so-called unemployment stuff. So in any case, I sent an email to some TurboTax guy who sent me an email advertising his services as some helper, and we'll see what happens. But in any case, you get a bunch of stuff like that happening, and it's like, especially if the rest of your life has been kind of dreary, and especially if, you're so unsure. Right now, as I've had in the past, it seems like my main question is it simply a case of put your faith in Christ, and Christ, the term Christ, check out Cutting Through by Alan Watt to see my, other potential thoughts on the term Christ. It's, Christ as in cross, as in Alan Watt talks about other potential meanings that might have that aren't specifically Christian, right? I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it's, it's something that I question. Anyway, I'm wondering if basically if it's just Jesus, which it very well may be, and in that case the answer is very simple, right? It's just Jesus, and that's it. And because someone on Substack told me the only way out of this prison is Jesus, so that seems to be a potentially fair claim. Evidence on the side of that is that I've often seen a lot of like cross imagery just all over the place in my life. Like your eye darts somewhere and there's like an obvious sort of cross shape. It's like, oh, Matt, that sounds random or just confirmation biasy. It's like, it might if it was only like once or twice, but if it's fairly frequently and if the crosses are fairly like distinct, like, it's not necessarily this, but say like a big red cross in a totally black background and it's like slightly shining behind it, something like that. It's like, but it's like, it's two tree branches, but it's like, it's announced there in the landscape. Something like that is what I'm talking about here. And I've seen a lot of that stuff, or, maybe not that dramatic every time, but a lot of stuff. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this is kind of loud, actually. Well, that might help, I suppose. Oh, you know what? If we go to training, maybe we can make it less loud. Let's see. I hope Herc's okay. Oh, no. In the games, the only thing you can hurt is your pride. Fight hard. You can forfeit any time, fight as much as you like. Now that's interesting. That's huge, especially for an occult series like this. They're almost saying, hey, you're fine. Like, how you feel about yourself might change, but otherwise you're fine. But they're encouraging you to put your all in, and you can forfeit it as many times, fight as much as you like. Okay, interesting. Now, okay, you're not entering the arena, are you? Oh no. Maybe I'll wait. I thought it was the other way. Okay. I think Traverse Town allows us to have a little less loud music. Let's do this for a bit. So anyway, oh, this is interesting anyway, right? But anyway, so you have stuff like that happen, and it's like, well, you know, you sort of get knocked. It kind of, you can feel a little knocked back by it anyway, and it's like, okay, well, so what are we doing here? Like, well, it's like my life is, I mean, I'm currently living with family. I currently don't have a job. Don't seem to have like a lot of, you know, personally, I've done a lot of projects and stuff that seem like they may be going somewhere or be able to build some steam, and have built some steam, and completed a lot of things, etc. However, in terms of like just money-making stuff or like social stuff or etc., whatever you might consider, on many things you might consider anyway on a normal, so-called normal. What is normal, right? Normal is what everyone does because they're following the routine. In any case, many things that might seem ordinary have been not, you know, I don't have a lot to show for them. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, it's a good planning time anyway, but especially when it's like, well, man, I've got a car insurance payments to make that I'm probably just gonna let it lapse, and then I'm just gonna go with a different company, and they didn't give me anything for my money anyway. They literally didn't. Insurance is a racket. It maybe wouldn't be a racket if you weren't forced to buy it to drive a car, but if they force you to buy insurance to drive a car, and so these companies are just making endless money off of people, whether they crash or not. Oh yeah, but they have people hired to be tracking these accounts and trying to screw you out of your money, etc. It's like, yeah, no, I know, right? You know, I'm sure there are a lot of people doing a lot for the insurance companies within them, but it might not be good stuff. It might be, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure there are a lot of people to pay, but they're charging you for nothing. So I'm not so. It's a forced charge to, as Mark Passio talks about, for transportation, to operate a vehicle, to travel. They're forcing you to get all these registrations and stuff, blah blah blah, not to mention car insurance. And that's not even directly from the extortioners themselves. That's from the government. That's from people benefiting from it. So I don't feel so incredibly bad, except for the idea that I had a contract with them, but I wouldn't have had that contract if I weren't coerced into it to do something. So I feel about as bad, maybe I feel a little more bad about that, a little more badly than I would about not paying like my taxes, my taxes, quote unquote, which I'd feel zero badly about, because the government is simply a system of violence, right? You'd feel zero bad about that, except when they came and made you feel bad, right? But in terms of like morally speaking, which is the more important thing, always, I would not, and that's interesting too, because there's this O-tier website where they're like, oh, well, ultimately you realize that gang stalking, targeted individual, they said the 6th realization out of 6, and by the way, it's 6. Okay, yeah. I've seen that with Tony Robbins with the steps for NAC. I've seen that with Hale Dwoskin, with the Sedona method. I'm not saying these things are not useful or whatever, but it's always 6, isn't it? It's rarely 7, it's always 6. The 6 steps, the 6 this, the 6 that. Like, seriously, go into almost any like self-help system or book. You're likely to find a 6th thing. And so the O-tier thing is 6. Well, that's a bit of a tip-off, isn't it? But anyway, I'm not saying it's bad or not. It's interesting material, but they're like, oh, you know, people come out of these experiences better for it, and like these experiences are pushing them, and thereby they use the term they say like the 6th of 6 realizations, interesting, is a gray group of, like, I guess they say supernatural entities or some morally gray group of something, where basically they're saying that you're on the path to getting out of this reality, graduating, and this is kind of your final like series of tests or conditions or something, right? So, hold on. We might even switch to another game for this. But so anyway, just to sort of lay it all out there, it seems to me that just sort of backing into the TI gang stalking territory, it seems to me that the explanations, at least that O-tier and maybe other people might have for it, are sort of unsatisfying or seem suspect because they're literally themselves saying it's a morally gray thing, and it would seem that way because if there is some kind of stuff like this going on, even if you were to just say it's sort of more of a Michael Brown presence process, even if you told somebody like what they're doing is bothering you, they wouldn't even know what you were talking about. And he's not talking about gang stalking, but it's a striking connection. I wonder if he considers himself a TI at some point. I don't know, or if he was sort of writing about that but not saying it. In any case, he's like, even if you told someone what they were doing was getting on your nerves, and it seemed like maybe sort of implied, it seems like they were trying to, they wouldn't know what you were talking about. It's like, all right, and so he says it's presence activating them, which sort of goes maybe more in line with indeed the sixth thing in O tier. By the way, there are some interesting sixes in the presence process as well. Not to mention the presence process, that's the PB, and then fear, anger, and grief. In that order, he talks about it usually. Fear, anger, and grief, just the way he usually orders the words. That's FAG, right? Those are like the... So FAG represents the sort of the unhelpful emotions, etc., whatever. So it seems on one side, potentially it's Jesus is the answer, and he can get you out of this prison, and that's it, right? And everything else is just kind of playing around. It's seeming to me, and I was thinking about it, maybe just sort of playing around in a fallen world. And then you can relate that to the O tier stuff by saying, well, yeah, maybe all this gang stalking stuff tends to push people into some corner of being a very resilient and even a very happy and satisfied person whom, according to them, might say, or who, according to them, might say, O tier them, that they don't regret having been through it, and they're glad that it happened, whatever. They have quotes, I don't know what. Anyway, but to me, that seems like it might just be somebody satisfied with living in this world as it is now. And so, oh yeah, I'm having a good time, even though all these horrible things seem to be happening. But I'm having a good time, and these people have forcibly molded me into somebody who is very emotionally resilient. Or you could translate that as somebody whom you can give a lot of abuse, and they're fine with it, right? That sounds like potentially not a good, healthy thing. That sounds potentially like someone being brought up in some kind of cycle of abuse, and then they just become either an abuser themselves, or they become used to it and okay with it. Stockholm syndrome, and they're actually thankful, right? See, there you go. It's pretty easy to see through that logically. And in that case, it's like, well, if all these people, here's the thing, there would be like people probably trying to screw with you if you were following a path of good, etc. And so in that case, it would be, you could say, well, no, it's not morally gray people doing it for your benefit or whatever graduation. No, it is, it's like morally evil people being, probably not themselves, because probably not that many people with a lot of ingenuity to do these things, but basically morally evil people, in some case being activated or paid to fuck with you because you're potentially getting out, and they're trying to stop you, and potentially they're trying to beat you into submission where you're happy with being in this fallen world rather than getting out of it. So that seems like a possibility. And so that seems like, and here's the thing, like the person who told me about like, Jesus is the way out, she seems like a super nice person. Like she gave me a lot of time. And that's like, oh, that's a gang stalker. Like, it's like, I don't know, you're skeptical of people, right? And this wasn't in person, this was not in person, but in any case, like, she seemed like a very decent person, and it seemed like she still cared about good and bad, whether or not these O-tier guys might think that there's any such thing, or they care about that. And it's just sort of logical. It's like, well, why would somebody be trying to mold you? If it was for the good, how could they be trying to mold you into good by either themselves doing bad things, such as things that they would themselves not want you to do, or tell you are not good, such as breaking into people's houses, spying on them, looking at them in compromising positions, whatever they might do, right? Whatever might happen to someone. How would that be for the good if it was bad means all the way, right? Jesus said, you shall know them by their fruits, right? So there you go. Like that, that seems like a potential warning that could apply to something like that. Also, yeah, how could it be for the good, even if it were people being used by something else to do bad things? Wouldn't those people be getting corrupted by doing those bad things? And so for all the benefit, even if it were benefit that somebody was receiving for all this, the people who are being used to so-called push them into that benefit, wouldn't they be getting corrupted, and wouldn't it hurt all of them? So it doesn't seem to make sense that like it's some kind of good outcome from this. It still seems like it's evil, and I just like, it's sort of basic stuff. Like evil means, I think, just don't generally lead to, evil means aren't generally the road to good. Now there's the whole thing, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. There are certain ways you can look at that, and I think that might just be sort of a false saying, right? How many people really have good intentions? If you're doing something bad, it's like, do you really think you have good intentions? It's like, probably usually not. You probably rationalize it or make excuses for it, but I doubt even you would say when you're doing something that you would deem bad that you had good intentions. You might just sort of say, well, I deserved to, or it was okay because, etc. Would you go so far as to call it good? I don't know. So if somebody's doing something bad to you, and like against your will, against your wishes, whatever, seemingly anyway, who knows, then it seems unlikely that there would be anything good at the end of that bad, or anything that is actually good, other than forming you into a nice, sturdy, solid brick that they put into the wall. By the way, they're like, oh, we don't know what. Now, here's the thing. I don't know about a lot of TIs, target individuals, whatever. I'm not sure who is, etc., but how many, etc. But they seem to say, like, oh, like in all these O-tier reports or some of the stuff, they're like, okay, well, and a good one, there's a very long one. That's the best one. It's like the longest of their three. I think it's the third and the longest of their. It's like a 20-minute read, supposedly, of their three like reports. That's where a lot of this is referring to, or where a lot of this seems to come from. But it would seem that just you don't get. You may get what you call a good outcome by doing things that you would call bad, but if somebody is pushing you and forcing you, and even as that guy says, like making you do things that they don't want you to do to get you closer to the end of it, in sort of an Osho sense of, if you fulfill a desire, then that gets you closer to the end of that bad desire in some way or another, whatever. There's a lot there. But in any case, so whatever, but to go back to what I was saying, I sort of branched off back again. In the context of, it doesn't seem like you build a good orchard with bad fruits, or you plant bad seeds to grow good fruits, etc., to use a metaphor. It seems like they say something like, well, we're not sure what the connection between TIs is, like what makes one likely to go have this experience. It seems to me like it might just be people who have a strong sense of moral good, people who are caring, compassionate, and people who are honest, at least from a lot of the people I've seen talk about this stuff, whatever. What about the O-tier people? Well, I don't know. Maybe not everyone's telling the truth, right? And O-tier, by the way, it looks polished enough, and it looks strange enough with the symbolism, like that circle with the three things. It looks like a bug or something at the top. It's like, yeah, plus you're using the 6 stages. Again, that's another 6 multiple. It's like, I don't know. It seems like, and I'm not looking to call everyone who uses 6 multiples bad, but at the same time, it seems like they might be suspect. And they might be some kind of controlled opposition thing to get you to think that the whole program is good, or whatever it is good, right? On the other side, it seems to me that the clear connective tissue from what relatively little I've seen, maybe it's just context sensitive based on what I've been looking into, or the areas that I would certainly more normally see, it seems like these are indeed dissident type people. These are indeed people who are less likely to be to be going along with the basic thing. And these seem like people who have, I would say, perhaps a strong idea of good and bad. And if the idea is that morally gray, if their idea as presented in the O tier thing, or an idea is that morally gray whatever are doing this as some kind of graduation program, it seems like it would be more in line or more consistent with these are morally gray forces or morally dark forces trying to beat the good and bad out of you, so that suddenly you're back to, oh, well, you know, nothing is good and bad, but thinking makes it so. Or suddenly you're back to, well, actually, inverted stuff is good and bad stuff is good, and the people who are bad are the people who talk about it, which is basically the summary of what so many people these days say. Oh, if you complain about anything or judge anybody, then you're bad, but, you know, all these bad things that happen, they're actually not that bad, and actually they might be kind of good. It's like, yeah, okay. It seems to me like TIs are generally good and bad people. So anyway, let's get on this fucking ship and go somewhere. Let's go to Traverse Town, see what we can do. So, okay. So it's like, Matt, can you summarize what you're talking about? You know what, if I ever put this on YouTube or wherever, maybe I'll make like sort of a list of points, or like a visual list. But it's like, okay, yeah, I'd like to summarize it for myself. So first thing, perhaps Jesus is indeed the way. Perhaps there's really nothing you can do, as a Baptist might tell you. Good metaphor that I heard from Baptist teacher once. I don't know if he was particularly a good guy or not, but some things, like you could, some things I'd point to and say he seemed like an extraordinary guy. He spent a lot of time going to jails and like giving people, even if it were just one or two people, he'd just sit there for like 2 hours and talk to them. Like one or two guys in a PC wing in a jail, and he's like spending all this time once a night, like basically every week. He stopped coming in after a while, I guess. I was there for some crimes. The other guy, I'm not quite sure what he was there for, but he seemed like a nice enough guy. But no, very few people were interested in this guy's stuff. And in fact, at least one person tried to sour me or just said like, oh yeah, like he's a fire and brimstone guy. He said X, Y, or Z. I didn't like that. I don't go back. This guy, he had a great metaphor about Jesus and salvation. He said something along the lines of, look, if you have this whole, if you're in line to buy some groceries, and you have this whole, like, shopping cart full of groceries, then you reach in your pocket, and you realize you don't have your money, well, Jesus might be the equivalent of somebody behind you who says, hey, I can pay for your groceries. You want, like, basically, oh no, there's no problem. I can pay for all of them. But here's the caveat. Here's the thing. You've got to accept it. You've got to accept his money. Money maybe makes the metaphor a little strange given the context, but basically you've got to accept his salvation. Like, because if you don't, he's not going to force it on you. And so there's somebody there who would say, okay, I'll pay for your groceries. The only thing you have to do is actually accept it. But you do have to accept it, at least in that metaphor. And so I'm saying that's his explanation, right? But that's a pretty decent one. Okay, that's a very evocative explanation. I think that would help a lot of people at least understand sort of the potential workings of the concept, the potential workings of the reality, perhaps, or of salvation itself, right? I think it would help a lot of people understand it, maybe. So, that might be what it is. The point A, that's the beginning thing. Point B, I don't necessarily buy the O tier thing. On some level, I will say, just for like honesty's sake, it does seem interesting. And as a data point, I will say that quite a few years ago, I basically, I listened to a lot of Buddha at the gas pump for a while, etc., looking into enlightenment and stuff. And for a long time, it was like, oh, I want enlightenment. Like, enlightenment is what I want. And there were stories about people who were like, I'm just going to sit on this rock until I'm enlightened, or like, I want enlightenment no matter what, etc. And I think I I'm not sure. Basically, like, I think maybe multiple times I've sort of had that kind of like request or that kind of thing. And so perhaps it does go along with the O tier thing where they say these are morally gray whatevers or whatever, and they are helping you in a graduation program with this graduation program out of this life. And they're basically pushing you to like draw all the crap out of you, and to go back to the Michael Brown presence process thing, which is one of the wisdom books in RPG Life that I have, Michael Brown revised edition. That would go back to the Michael Brown thing of, yeah, presence is activating these people in other words, but you could say this is a different way of speaking about the whole concept. He's like, presence is activating people essentially to screw with you or to do things that are going to get on your nerves, or, you know, to trigger things in you. To use a scary term for the G to hear me say, right? And I don't mean God, right? But trigger, I don't mean the grand architect of the universe either. But, you know, they could be essentially triggering you in various emotional ways. And it's not even them who are intending to do it. It's not even they who are intending to do it. It's actually the, I thought I'd say the government. It is actually the, it's presence or whatever you want to say, and it's for your benefit. And perhaps it is even with your consent, because you actually asked for something like that. And when I was asking for that, I was doing it thinking or having some sense of like, yeah, well, it's, you know, they say it's going through the fire, it's like dealing with all your emotions, X, Y, or Z. I think at that point I had read the presence process, etc., and done it maybe multiple times, etc. at that point. So what are you gonna do, right? That's evidence towards O tier potentially being correct, right? Or towards that being reasonable. Oh wait, can we do? Oh, hey, we have the red one now. Interesting. Oh, okay. That said, though, it still seems to kind of break apart to me if they're using people to do so-called bad things that they would then, in their gang stalking way or whatever, punish you or consider you not a graduate of the program if you would do. They're using people to treat you in ways where the government would arrest you for treating people in those ways. Where, you know, it would seem to be a sin to act in those ways that people might act towards you. And beyond that, it seems like at least at the job that I talked about at the beginning of the 8 video set, I think it would have been the out and then abuse before that. It seemed like, at least at that last job, it seemed very unlikely that people didn't know what they were doing, because basically, like, I explained a lot of it, but so much of what they were doing, not only did it seem like it was references and relations and things that would relate to me specifically, etc., and to things that were emotional triggers for me, etc. But it seemed like they all had this like nasty, mean smile on their, or maybe not all, but like often it was done with this air of like nasty knowingness. It's like, see, perhaps you could say, well, in those cases they were fucking with you, but they didn't realize that they were doing it to help you. They thought they were just fucking with you and they knew how to do it. Now that's a possibility. That is a possibility, or it seems like a possible thing. Now, Matt, the second image there, probably, unless we're doing multiple videos of this, probably don't use that. But okay, so point one, potentially Jesus is the way, and potentially it's just sort of Satan/demonic interference that gang stalking would be to try to drag you down, right? Point one. Not to mention the fact that these people seem to represent more of a normie type of thing, and normie culture, as I talked about in the video The Out, with the Resident Evil 0 picture and stuff. Normie culture is all about Satan. Normie culture, you know, as I said, you know, oh, these people are an older term now, early 2000s or whatever, the 2000s, they were like, I'm a baller. They were like, I'm a baller. You play basketball, football. Every game is maybe not every game, but there are so many games that are ball games. You pay your bills. There was a president called Bill Clinton. It's so many bill, ball. They ring a bell, etc. It's like, okay, oh, what's that? It's like, well, that might all be, if you listen to Mark Passio, that might all be Baal terminology, B-A apostrophe A-L. You know, like that seems, he says like he took it to the bill form. I don't even know if I would have thought that, but basically it's like that might indeed be like just essentially a reference to like an evil god entity or something, right? So that's just one of the things. That's just one of the strands that is just obviously satanic, like actually satanic, and in image as well, whether it's controlled opposition or whatever you want to call it. In imagery, it's like very satanic. Then you see all these awards shows and everything, and it's always like some kind of satanic ritual. Tom McDonald talked about it. What they have satanic ceremonies at their awards shows, all sorts of actually satanic stuff. You don't see a lot of overtly Christian stuff, at least not in that kind of density in society. You don't see a lot of, or frequency, you don't see a lot of, just Christian, like goodness God symbolism. You see a crap load of devil symbolism, and it seems like those are the exact same type of people who might end up gang stalking you, or if it's some kind of government related thing, it's like, well, of course, those would be similar people, right? Or maybe the same, right? So not to mention the all-seeing eye stuff, everything, it's like, that doesn't seem to represent God. That seems to represent actually the defined and indeed the thematic enemies of God, as shown in things like the Bible, right? It's all like right out there in your face. The question really then becomes, are they doing this because they actually believe in that stuff, which I think people like Mark Passio might say they are, hence the Hillary Clinton email where she said it's like sacrificing a chicken to Moloch or something. That might have been a joke, but why was she throwing around the term Moloch, right? It's like, then, Mortal Kombat, they have a character named Moloch, not to mention a character named Shiva, which is an Indian god, etc. Do they have a character named Jesus? No, it seems like it seems like Jesus is the punching bag in terms of the public, and everything else is just this overt satanic metaphor. So it seems like a lot would support the first thing, that Jesus is the way out, that everything's basically evil. Obviously, the government's evil. It's a monopoly on force. They thrive on killing babies. They thrive on stealing money from people. That's their whole funding. Cops don't save people. They just hurt them. Cops more likely to pull you over way more times than he's ever likely to help you, etc., etc., etc. The entire thing seems very satanic on its face. Maybe, you might say, well, Matt, Romans, St. Paul, the government is God's reign here on earth. It's like, yeah, I don't know about that. It seems like the government, does a lot of satanic stuff. It's like, well, Matt, Job, God worked with Satan by name, right? It's like, okay, and oldest book in the Bible, okay, and then you might take it more to an Alan Watt thing where it is more like, yeah, it's all just the same shit. Alan Watt also has some interesting things to say about the Our Father prayer. He's like, well, yeah, that's not a prayer to God, that's a prayer to something else. I'm not saying that. It is something you can look into, all right? Not to mention Logion 22 in the apocryphal Gospel of Thomas. You might say, well, that didn't make it into the Bible. That's fine. But in the Gospel of Thomas, there's something about men shall become women, women shall become men. That's along with the H-maphroditic agenda that Alan Watt talks about. There's a lot to look into that would criticize that. So here's the thing, it's difficult to say that even if everything is distinctly satanic, that wouldn't still, the opposite of that wouldn't still be part of the same story and the same narrative. That said, if you care about honesty and you care about the good, then a bunch of people practicing deception and doing a lot of bad things to you seems to indicate that that's coming from a bad place, if there is such a thing as bad. And if all this gang stalking stuff is supposed to be like, oh, molding you into a better person or something, then why are they hurting people, putting coals on other people's heads to do that? Why are they activating people to do that with presence? Why are they using deceptive means and bad means to seem to drive you towards being a better and a more honest person? It doesn't. You could say that's the yin yang, etc., but it seems like it's just like, I don't know. It seems like the statement about you shall know them by their fruits, or like good fruit doesn't grow from a bad tree. That's a beautiful statement. That statement would seem to destroy all this, right? Good fruit doesn't grow from a bad tree. If that's true, then that's a clear dividing line, right? At least it's sort of in a metaphorical way. But okay, so first thing, potentially Jesus is the way out. Potentially, maybe, and maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe, and I'm not here saying it's not. Second thing, the O tier stuff seems suspect, and it does seem like that is where gang stalking pushes people, because I've found the same patterns with myself. You can go on American Noble, you can go all over the place and with what I've written and talked about, and you can see that I fit almost the exact, not only do I seem to fit the exact description of someone likely to have this stuff happen to them, but I also fit a pretty good description of someone who seems likely to so-called graduate, because I'm becoming more empowered. I've got this notebook next to me with all these commitments, or like all these plans, and Jesus said don't make promises, and I say specifically, it's, these aren't commands, these are suggestions, etc. It's you're already fine, etc. It's like I'm doing study, I'm reading books, I'm exercising. Basically, it seems like I'm fitting the exact mold of exactly what this stuff is trying to push people to do, according to O tier, right? And that's how you get out. You become an empowered, strong, good, even-keeled, better than average in various ways, or like extraordinary type of person at the end of all this, right? It seems like it's sort of, I'm sort of going in the direction that it wants me to, all right? So that's sort of alarming, actually. That is kind of alarming, because it's like, okay, am I becoming a good little slave, becoming a good little brick in the wall? It's like, well, Matt, wouldn't you rather be like more powerful? Wouldn't you rather be more consistent? Don't you like all this stuff? And aren't your two rules in the RPG life stuff, be honest and be good? It's like, see, everything else, maybe not, I don't know. But those two rules, I'm glad I put those in there, because being honest and being good goes totally against everything that's been happening to me. Totally, not in terms of what I've been doing necessarily. I mean in terms of what people have been doing to me. It doesn't seem to make sense that they would use dishonest and good means to encourage being honest and being good. And in fact, it seems like they're not encouraging people to become real morally strong people. It seems like that they want people end up becoming morally gray and like, oh, whatever, it's all fine. It's like, well, Matt, what about you are okay? That doesn't mean just because you might be inherently okay. That doesn't mean that there isn't some value in be honest and be good, right? They're both part of the same system, and I haven't really felt a sense of like I was going wrong with, I think, either of those things. In fact, it would seem like if I were to go wrong with one of those, it would have been the you are okay thing, and without any caveats, right? But basically, it seems to me like there's a real disconnect for me with what O tier says, and it's like O tier, who gives a shit about them? I just think they collected a lot of information into at least a decent summary of what one might end up thinking about this stuff, right? The conclusions one might end up coming to. So it's helpful just to sort of maybe skip to the summary part, right? Whether or not that summary is true. So you can at least see, like, well, this is a possible eventual path that they want you to go to, whether or not it's a good path, and maybe it's an evil path for you to go down, because again, good fruit doesn't come from a bad tree. If that statement is valid, then that shoots through a lot of what they say, right? So anyway, so now 3. So the first thing, the question of Christ, the question of Jesus. It's like, oh, that deserves its own thing. Isn't that just one of many religious paths? It seems to me like it seems to be fairly central. It seems like whatever you want to say about it, maybe it's just because I'm in America, whatever, but it seems like, especially given, like, even perhaps more especially given all the anti-Christian and anti-bad stuff and positively satanic stuff that a lot of these people that might even be associated with these kinds of programs and stuff, or the people who might harass you and how they might act, might seem like they're overtly satanic. So that would potentially reflect that they are overtly against Jesus. So that's a big one. That deserves, that deserves its own point as a point. It does. I think it does. I think it would. Anyway, second point. The morally gray thing, where they're pushing you towards some kind of like goodness or some kind of like self-empowerment stuff. I don't know. To me, that seems like it's actually just going down a road of evil to being some moral relativist. Like, you might even say like more of a latter-day Eckhart Tolle, more than the Eckhart Tolle who I think at one point he's like, oh, moral relativism is one of the great evils of our time, and then suddenly he's like, well, there is no such thing as good and bad. It's like, you know, the second thing is this idea of morally gray and whatever. I think that might indeed be where this stuff is trying to push people, and I think ultimately it might be what you might deem sort of an Illuminati initiation ritual. Like, they pick people who really give a shit, and they're kind of doing 2 in 1. They're probably saying, hey, these people like Sora, this whole thing's a cult, you know, oh, Sora, oh, it never changed Sora, Riku changed, Riku's his friend, Kairi's like sitting with Sora near the beginning of this game, she's like, Riku changed, you never changed Sora. They seem to want you to not be Sora. Well, of course, I think Sora is probably going to be like an Illuminati type figure in this as well. Where does this game come from, right? Disney and Square. Nevertheless, and it's huge, right? Millions of dollars, billions, whatever. It seems like the second point is that it seems invalid, and it even seems like potentially an Illuminati thing, classically, where they find people who are particularly good or particularly strong or discerning or whatever, and then they target them, and then they essentially, this is, if you graduate, then perhaps someday you get a knock on the door, and it's like now, and the guy on O-Tier, he's like, yeah, a lot of people who are XTIs or something, they're doing well, they're making more money than they ever thought, they have a better life than they ever thought, they're married, etc., and it's like, not, these things aren't necessarily bad, although Jesus did say it'd be harder for a camel to go through the eye of the needle, right? And then, by the way, the Baptist guy who gave me the metaphor, said the metaphor from before, he said something about like, okay, well, a needle is actually not a needle, a sewing needle. A needle would have actually been something that they did put camels through back then, and it wasn't impossible. It wasn't like a strange image and impossible or physically whatever. It was more just like something that was difficult to get the camel through, but they actually would put the camel through it. Like that's what it was for. It was for camels to go through. So I don't know. But in any case, it seems like the graduates, so-called, this program, they seem to just become like, you know, enhanced normies. They seem to just become like, essentially, if you want to do 5%, 10%, 85 percenters, they seem to become the 10 percenters, really, not the 5 percenters, and not the 85% deaf, dumb, and blind. They seem to become successful people who are just like so successful or whatever. They just really don't give a shit. It's sort of like a Scott Adams. Look, I don't want to speak ill of Scott Adams, but Scott Adams doesn't seem like a particularly moral guy. He talks about like lying to people, etc. Like not that he lied about anything in particular, but like he talks about like, oh yeah, like sometimes, you know, you'd rather say this because you're gonna have to live with this person, or etc. You'd rather just tell them a lie, etc. I'm not telling you to lie, but that's it. It's like, yeah, maybe this kind of whole experience is kind of there to mold you into basically some evil person or some at least not very good person who is just kind of broken like a horse, and you're getting your treats from this evil society. And perhaps you even then say like Hail Satan or you know, praise Moloch or something. Okay, so what's the third thing, Matt? Well, the third thing is probably going to sound like where they're trying to get me with the second thing, and so I'm careful about it. But the third thing is, I'm sitting here after doing these taxes and stuff. I'm sitting here after, you know, being treated terribly at this last job, and it seems like they were spying on me or like knew more about me than they should have, whatever. They were being malicious, and in any case, it seemed. I'm sitting here after all that, and, you know, basically after being hit in the face by everything, and I'm thinking, this is not the best situation for me to be in. And I would probably do well not to become an evil person, not to say, oh, suddenly good and bad thinking makes it so, whatever. No, I think that I would do well to basically build myself a raft out of here. And so the third thing is, let's put together some fucking plans for my life so that I can steer myself to more of a clear area where it's not as easy for people to get to me and take me off course. I was thinking about it this way. If I get a good enough job, it's going to be probably pretty hard. I don't know if the harassment's going to continue with even my next job. I don't know. But say I got a good enough job, I don't think there'd be enough people who just didn't give a shit about what they were doing, that they could just like harass me 24/7 and also be effective employees. I think if I get a good enough job, and I'm not talking about making a lot of money, I think, you know, I have a post on Matthew's Substack, which you can look at in the Ubermat document, where I question if indeed money is indeed evil, and to have any money at all is to be complicit in evil. And it certainly is in the sense that a lot of your money then goes back to the government and they use it for evil, right? It's like you are playing around with with evil. Not to mention, Jesus said, render that unto Caesar's, that which is Caesar's, or I would say that is Caesar's. Probably talking a different language anyway, whatever. Render that unto God, that which is God's, or that is God's. He says that, he's separating money from God. They're saying, what about the tax collectors? He's saying, give Caesar his money because that's Caesar's. Give God what's his. And he's essentially saying that money is not God's. And from a guy who also said, or from Jesus who also seemed to have said something about it would be so hard to get into heaven, or it might be, he maybe implied that it would be hard to get into heaven if you were a rich man. Well, it seems like he would be just the guy to say, yeah, money has nothing to do with God, and in fact, money is separate from God, and if you're dealing with money, then you're not dealing with God. And you could even, I don't know if he would take it that far, but you might even take it so far as to say that money is like going astray from God, right? So it's like, oh, Matt, you're focused on getting money. It's like, I'm not focused on getting money, but I am focused on, I'd like to change my life because I don't want to make it so easy for people to fuck with me. And I think if I were to have any job making any kind of money, I think it'd be a lot easier for me. A, if I worked alone in some capacity, that'd be great. But B, who knows, maybe I'll be an entrepreneur. Maybe I'll be a famous rich YouTuber. I don't know. Whatever, rich. There you go, Matt. Is that what you want? Not over salvation, no. But it seems like in the position I'm in with the way things are for me, it does seem like it's very easy for people just to attack me and get me in 1,000 different means at once. And if I have a shitty low-level job, it'd probably be pretty easy for people to fuck with me and spend a lot of their time fucking with me and not really affect their job performance. Because guess what? You're working at Home Depot. Guess what? You're a fucking delivery driver. Guess what? You're working at a pizza place. It's like, there's not so incredibly much to do there. Now, some of these might be somewhat fast-paced, I don't know. But there's not so incredibly much to do there that people couldn't spend a lot of their time and a lot of their energy and a lot of their focus fucking with you. If you get a good enough job, I'm sure it's still like a case of a lot of people have a lot of extra time. But I think if you get a good enough job with actual employees doing actual things, and I mean a job that isn't like evil, like working for the government or something, etc., or working for a weapons manufacturing or whatever, but I repeat myself, if you get a good enough job, then it's less likely that people are going to have the bandwidth to fuck with you. So Matt, I guess this is, oh, hey, we got to the top. That's insane. So Matt, it might be fear talking, and in that case, maybe we'll keep going with this. If not, I guess the previous one would have been a good endpoint. I did feel like I felt some sense that it might have been, but who knows where these senses are coming from, right? Spidey senses, right? There you go, Spidey sense, spider. So Matt, maybe now it's a good time to plan things out. So let's go to Wonderland and start a plan. That's a nice place to go, Wonderland. Let's go to Wonderland in Kingdom Hearts. Anyone listening? Let's go to Wonderland, the video game Kingdom Hearts, and start writing down a plan. I've written down plans before, but as I was thinking of last night, like I was, yesterday I was having a bit of a tough time, at least at points, and I was like, man, I put together all these plans and they just never worked out. And I was thinking, or I sort of responded to myself, and if you think that's crazy, check out How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. Scott Adams is like, he said something like, well, you could think of like thinking about something, or in some sense you could think of like thoughts as like a conversation between two parts of yourself. And so he's like, well, there's a fun me and a more reasonable, there's a more emotional me and a more rational me. And if the rational me wants the emotional me to be on board with X, Y, or Z, he's got to push the right buttons, etc. But in any case, like we can, basically it was like, to go back to what I was saying, it was like, okay, so, the plans, and Matt, maybe from this video on, you can start really editing it, right? Maybe everything before this wouldn't have been editing. Maybe this is the final cutoff thing. But in terms of not editing and then editing, but it was like, okay, Matt, so yeah, you've made all these plans. They haven't been plans. Tony Robbins, he has a good distinction about this, to use a term that he has used, distinction. But he's like, yeah, if you think about something, that's not really necessarily a plan. That's not really necessarily a goal. That's just that's like nothing. right? Now, here's the thing, like, I've written a lot of stuff down, and I think, like, I've kept to a lot of things. I've kept to, like, a decent routine. Scott Adams is talking about systems and stuff. I've been doing a system, and it's been working actually sort of wonderfully for me. And I think it's potentially led me to the point where I'm ready to say all this. It's like, well, Matt, your gang stalkers have led you to that. It's like, yeah, they might have been pushing on me, but they don't get the credit for what I do. All right, and if they do get the credit, then that means it's bad fruit coming from a bad tree, right? I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Oh, yeah. Let's hang here for a second. So, but I was standing there, and I think it was at the kitchen sink, like washing something. It was like, you know what, Matt, like. Yeah, your plans, maybe you've written stuff down, whatever, but, like, they haven't really been plans. And you've said it over and over again, like, oh, I'm making the plans, all these videos, I'm making the plans, all these Twitch streams, I'm going to do the plan, this is going to be my life direction, whatever. It's like, a lot of things have worked out, and a lot of things, like daily practices, the perfect schedule, all these things, scheduling things, RPG life, a lot of things have actually had remarkable consistency and come together in a remarkably good way, or seemingly a helpful one. But in terms of like your plans for your own life, it's sort of just been like you get sort of an intuitive feeling. You kind of write it down. It's like, okay, what should I write down? What's the should? Tony Robbins, he's like, you should all over yourself, right? Other people probably said that too, but it's like, I think it should versus, let's write this down actually. First of all, it's should versus would like. Now, want has all sorts of connotations. I'm not sure I want to write want. Well, that's funny, right? I'm not sure I'd like to write want, but it's should versus would like. And if you feel like it's a should, maybe it is some kind of helpful thing. But I talked about in maybe in some of the previous 8 videos talking about the gang stalking stuff, I've talked about how I think in fact it might have been what, the Sora, or actually I think it might have been the propaganda period. Whatever. Oh, it was I think, yeah, it was the propaganda period, because that's where I talked about the gas station thing. Well, first of all, should versus would like. It seems like a lot of my intuition has led me in a lot of good ways. It seems like if I followed it, it's led to a lot of good things, and a lot of things that I've still been doing, like RPG Life, etc. I've got a whole list of reference books on the table here, a whole stack. It's beautiful. Maybe I'll include a picture. I like all this stuff. You know, these wisdom books, etc. I got the Bible right in front of me under the computer. All these things. Hyperion in front of that. Those are my reading books. I've got 4 specific stacks of books in the room, plus a few other things that I don't really consider stacks of reading books. It's more there. And the Bible is actually in that, interestingly. It's like, yeah, see, Matt, you don't have the Bible. It's like, okay. Well, that's what I wondered about with question 1, right? But in any case, should versus would like. If I feel like it's a should, then I'm probably going to write it down, and then it's probably just going to be like, well, maybe I end up going with it, maybe I don't. If it feels like an intuitive nudge or something, maybe that'd be the best thing. Or maybe it's like something that somebody's sort of beaming into me or zapping to me that would have me go off track, and I don't really feel invested in it. And if a plan is built on shoulds, especially if it's a plan where it's like, well, I'd like these things to happen, I sort of have a few sort of basic steps, but it doesn't seem like I've got like this is what I do tomorrow, that's what I do the next day, and reasonably the result would likely be in 8 days or 16 days or whatever, I have X result, and then that'll lead to that result in this way, and it's specific. It's like, if you're going along with a bunch of shoulds, you're probably not even doing the rest of that stuff. I don't know. If you're going along with a bunch of intuitive nudges or intuitive options, perhaps you're just going along with what somebody like sort of handed you on a platter, and the real thing would actually be, what would I like to do, like Adyashanti said. And I'm not saying Adyashanti's necessarily good. Seems like he might not be, but perhaps the real thing, and it's like, what, do as thou wilt? Oh, that sounds real holy, right? It's like, okay, yeah, it does seem like that gets the morally gray thing. Okay, so here, let's do the shield then. Oh, the Shield bat, like the TV show with Michael Chiklis. No, Chiklis. That's funny too, right? He's the bald guy. He's Chiklis. But okay, so the Shield. So the Shield. This has got to be before everything, because if this gets corrupted, then it's just an easy way for me to fall into the gray fucking, oh, nothing is good or bad trap, and it's like, oh, you've become finally the perfect cog in our machine. It's like, no, okay, so the Shield. So should versus would like, maybe should versus want, but again, want is like the lack of something, etc. The Shield. All right, what is the Shield? 2 rules: be honest, be good, and then let go. Is there a third thing? I don't know. At least 2 rules: be honest, be good. That might even be the entire Shield. And those are the inventory section. But hold on. 2 rules: be honest, be good. Now, if I can maintain that with the rest of this plan, then the plan's fine. Because there are 2 rules. If the plan fits within the rules, then great. It's like, well, Matt, what if there was an intuition like Morpheus telling you gotta go out there? It doesn't matter if it's good or not. Or maybe, you know, don't do bad, but it doesn't matter about whether it's following the rules. It matters, like, are you getting out of here? Morpheus seems to be a good representation symbolically of Jesus. It's like Neo's listening to the cell phone. It's like, well, why do you want me to go into the other cubicle? Why do you want me to go into that office? Oh, you want me to go out on the scaffolding? It's like Morpheus is like, we have no time. He's like, how do you know these things? And Morpheus says, we have no time. Good double meaning there. I've talked about it. I think I might talk about it in RPG Life, the book, actually. Check out mathos.com. RPG Life section, the book at the end of the page there. But I think it's the one right at the end, right? In any case, good double meaning there. We have no time, as in, we don't have time for you to question it. I'm telling you how to get out of here. It may not make sense for you, but you're in a false reality right now, and I'm telling you how to get out of here. You trust me and you follow me, or you're not going to get away from those agents. But also, B, we have no time, as in, we're not living in the realm of time. We're not living in the realm of past and future, in the realm of mental constructs and stuff. I know these things because I'm outside of time. I know these things because maybe in an Eckhart Tolle sense, in a sense of enjoy the now, John Slattery in Adjustment Bureau, as well as in the Adjustment Bureau, and I do talk about these things, I think, in RPG Life, check it out. But the book, it's like 50 pages. He's like, the other guy in the Adjustment Bureau, not John Slattery, but another agent, he's like, being in time, you're in time. Being too early is just as bad as being too late. Basically, you've got to hit the exact center of the target or you're going to fucking miss. And so Morpheus is like, Neo says, how do you know all these things? Morpheus says, we have no time. That might be a more of an answer than most people, including me for most of the time that I've had seen that movie, an answer that you didn't even realize. He's saying, we know this because we are outside of time. All right? Okay, so should versus would like. Oh, and let's do the plan, because the plan is actually how I present it in what I write every week. The plan. It's one of the 8 statements, and then the 5 other things, whatever. You can check out medium.com for that, or RPG Life Building check out RPG Life Building the Perfect Man or something, which sounds kind of Masonic, but that's on American Noble on Substack. Gives you a decent lowdown. But okay, so the plan. Point 1, should versus would like. You want to go I thought to say you want to go should. You want to go would like because you want the engine to be actually something that you want. This is basic Tony Robbins. This is, he says you have to have a reason for it. I don't know if I like that term reason, Alan Watt, and it's like, oh, Matt, you're tied up in knots. It's like, well, am I tied up in knots, or have I seen all sort of different things that people don't usually talk about, right? But in any case, I'm not sure if Alan Watt talks about reason being kind of a control thing, and of course, what does the state say? What is the definition in court? It's a reasonable person. This is based on what a reasonable person would do. If the state's talking about a reasonable person, reason is probably a word to have some alarm bells going off about. In any case, should versus would like essentially is it am I behind this? Am I behind this? Or is something else behind this, right? The something else would probably be the should, something else, I. Okay. So should versus would like, something else, I. Okay, and then, and again, it's like, oh, Matt, now it's just about, like, you know, evil and whatever. It's like, look, that's where the shield comes in. The shield, 2 rules, be honest, be good. Show me the Freemason who the actual, like, you know, hardcore Freemason anyway, who really follows that shit, who cares about honesty and goodness, who actually cares, who wouldn't lie in any circumstance. I mean, the lies are built into Freemasonry. They apparently they deceive the lower orders, the lower, the lower degrees, and they tell them different things, but then they tell the higher ones different things, and it's like, well, maybe it's all true, but, you know, it's more discerning at the top. That's a fair thing. But in any case, it's like, would an evil person, that this might sound circular, but indeed, would an evil person be honest and be good at all times? I don't think they'd be honest and be good ever, probably. So the shield, first, it's should versus would like. Something else versus I, as in, do I want this, or am I potentially being manipulated? Potentially manipulated wants. Wanting. Okay. And you know what? Maybe should versus... maybe should versus want. I don't know. I do kind of like want. Okay. Should versus want. Something else versus I, and then potentially manipulated versus wanting. Okay, that's probably helpful. And then it's like, okay, well then how do you know, Matt, that your plan is going to lead somewhere good and you're not going to become some evil cog in the wheel somewhere? Oh, I have a good life. I'm glad that I went through all that shit. I'm glad I went through all that shit from those deceptive, bad people, and somehow it turned out to be good, right? Oh, I guess I got good fruit from a bad tree. It's like, well, I don't know, right? But if you have the shield on, 2 rules. Be honest, be good. And then also let go. Okay, and now we can actually do the plan. So that's great, man. Oh my God, that's very nice. This is a good way to plan. Okay, and at the top of the plan, we're gonna do don't live in fear. Okay. Actually, we're not. That's not bold. I thought say the period on "Don't Live in Fear" is bold. Okay, good. So the plan. Those, then the shield, and then you know, a dividing line, and then "Don't live in fear." Period. And now we can plan. So this should, I guess, I would say this would be at the top of every planning page that I would have. I'd probably suggest it be at the top of your planning pages. Not because I said it, but because I think these are some good guidelines for you to follow, so that you're not going to fall into, oh, I'm going to do all these things and they're going to help me, but I don't really care about anything else. No. How about not? Okay. So let's get into making the plan. And now, do we want to switch over to another game, or maybe let's do a save here real quick anyway. We're just, yeah, this is just, how long has this been? Well, about an hour, right? Okay. Great. Okay, yeah, I think I'd like to, now that we've sort of developed that, maybe we want to do a clean slate plus get some different music. Alright, so continuing on that video, I think probably continuing, we did take the other screenshot, maybe this could be part 2, I don't know. In any case, let's make the actual plan here. Now we got Final Fantasy VI here, good game. Originally Final Fantasy, what, 3 in the US, because we didn't get a few of them. We didn't get fucking 3 of them, man, that's crazy, but eventually we did, I guess. Okay, this is largely just to get different music. Sorry, I don't want to bombard you with just the same fucking loop, especially little loops like Kingdom Hearts, where it's really not the nicest like background music. This game has nice, but let's sort of transition from each set of background music, because this game also in itself kind of wears thin after a while on that front. So what do we got? So the plan, should versus want, the shield, and now Don't Live in Fear. That's after the dividing line. So what are the main quests? So quests. What are the outcomes? Tony Robbins says no. Tony Robbins says know your outcome. That's reflective, perhaps specifically, of something that Richard Bandler and or John Grinder talks about in Frogs into Princes, where they say, like, you know, this is the formula for success. It's funny, actually, because I think Scott Adams, he's like, well, people haven't found a formula for success or haven't found one that works. He's like, Stephen Covey came close. I'm looking at the book, the Stephen Covey book, 7 Habits, actually the workbook on top of it, right? But he's like, oh, Stephen Covey had the 7 habits, and he's like, but that didn't seem to budge the poverty rates, whatever. So, you know, people, you know, maybe nobody's found the plan yet, but the goal would be everybody is able to be successful in the world. We figured out how to do it. We teach everybody. Well, I think Bandler and Grinder might have figured it out. And it was basically like, it was similar to Tony Robbins' ultimate success formula. It was slightly different, maybe in content or structure, maybe in wording. But Tony's is, I think, 4 steps. Theirs was 3. I'm pretty sure theirs was basically like, it was know what you want. Know what you want was the first one. And his is as well. Know what you want. I think what he added was know why you want it. I think they might have contained that within know what you want. Maybe Tony makes it a little better. I don't know. And this wasn't them like writing it down in some like really, I don't want to say discerning way, but this wasn't them writing it down in some really structured way. This was actually them doing, they talk about how this is apparently mostly, at least, text, if not all, text from a transcription of a seminar that they had with people. And they say that they do the seminars in uptime, or they did them in uptime, and that would be they essentially they're doing presence. They're present. They're not thinking. They're just they're just saying what comes to them. That's what they're doing. That's the whole seminar. But they also talk about how you want to learn these things and learn them well enough that you have all these different options available to you in any situation, but you have options available to you unconsciously so that you can employ them without thinking about it. If you're trying to think about it, you're probably going to fuck it up. If you're trying to think about it in the situation, you're probably going to fuck it up. But if you know them well enough that you can just throw them out there, then that's different. And so they talk about being in uptime. I guess the idea might be that they studied a lot of this stuff to the point where they knew it well enough that they could just give a whole presentation about this, and maybe they knew what they wanted. They had some outcome of like, we want to give a good presentation, this, that, or the other way, and then this book was just the results of that. Now that's kind of beautiful. But in any case, this ultimate success formula and theirs thing, it started with knowing what you want, knowing your outcome. Tony also had OPA before the ultimate success formula. OPA is what? Outcome, purpose, action, I think. Yeah. So I think theirs was like basically similar, though. It's like know your outcome and then know your outcome, basically try something and notice whether it's working. I think Tony's might have been like, know your outcome, know why, try something, and then notice whether it's working, and as a part of that, and if it's not working, change your approach until you get what you want. That may sound sort of circular, but it's kind of beautiful to find a circular success formula. It's like, if you do that, you, by definition, get what you want, right? It's like, yeah, well, maybe it doesn't work. Well, if you follow those steps, then it will work, because you keep going until you get it. And Bandler, actually, I think maybe this was in Richard Bandler's Guide to Transformation, rather, that it could have been in Frogs into Princes. I think Bandler, in one place or another, he's like, I think it might have been Richard Bandler's Guide. He's like, the thing about me is I don't stop until I get what I want. He's like, I will keep trying until I get what I want. And that goes along with grit, Angela Duckworth, persistence, etc. Now, Scott kind of criticizes that, but Scott also criticizes affirmations, and yet he basically everything, including his entire Dilbert career as a famous cartoonist, he seems to present to you that it was because of affirmations. Like, he literally did affirmations. He presents to you, and he doesn't present any cases where he did affirmations and he failed, and he presents a lot of failures. But he has multiple chapters where he's presenting these things where it's like, I did affirmations, and maybe I did them thinking I was going to debunk it, or it might not work, or whatever. I guess, like, he threw himself into it. He wasn't just, like, sort of half doing it. But he did affirmations and they worked, right? Now, here's the thing. That might be the fucking key to success. Just do affirmations, right? I don't know. You check out how to fail at almost everything and still win big. And then you do affirmations for yourself. They are very powerful. I did affirmations one time a few years ago. I mean, I've done them in the past, but like a specific thing, I was like, I will get a job tomorrow. And guess what? I got the job the next day, walked in, got hired. Now, it wasn't anything particularly special or anything, but I did the affirmations and it happened. It's, you know, I don't know. So maybe it would be worth it actually for me to do affirmations as well. Because once I have my quests, if they are worth going after, then maybe doing affirmations would be helpful. Do affirmations as well. Okay. Maybe that's just one of the tools, whatever. But so what are my quests? What would I like? Know your outcome. I'd suggest checking out Frogs into Princes. I think it's more than halfway through. It's like on one page. It's sort of the bottom on a left side of the page on the left, page on the right. It's like sort of the bottom half of a page on the left, leading into the top of a page on the right. It's like one big paragraph. It's kind of beautiful. They're like, "Yep, this is it. Know your outcome. Do this and then do that. Those are the 3 steps to success." Scott, maybe you should take note. I don't. Scott talks about hypnosis. He talks about enough stuff that if he doesn't mention NLP or Richard Bandler, I bet you he's looked into some of that. But whatever. All right. So let's. So what do we want? What are the outcomes? What are the quests? Outcome number 1: move out. That's it. That's number 1. But that's just the negative side of it, right? I don't want to just leave it there. Move out to your own house. Oh, there we go. Move out to your own house. How about that? Now, here's the thing. We don't want to go astray here because it's like, oh, how about that, right? It's like, Matt, are these really your plans, or are these going to just be more things where you wrote something down and then you're like, things are still the same? Good distinction there. All right. I think that's a good enough, that's pretty good because I would like that. I actually would like that. Is that a should or a want? That's a want. I'd like it. Now, here's the thing. When I gauge my feelings, it doesn't mean I wouldn't like it, but it could mean that I have some feelings about like, oh, but it would be so hard to do that I'd rather not because it feels like other things are, coming up in the way, etc. That probably has a lot to do with why I'm not in my own house right now, honestly. But let's keep that one there. We can further specify it. All right. Now, number 2, quest number 2. So what's number 2? Well, number 1 is salvation, actually. So maybe we'll have quest 2 move out. Quest 1, if it is such a thing, like if I don't have it or if it's needed, salvation is number 1. That's number 1. What's salvation, Matt? Whatever salvation is. If you knew exactly what it was, you might have it because you'd have enough of understanding to see it, right? But it does seem like we're in an evil world. It seems like it's ruled by evil. It seems like almost everyone is evil. At the very least, they're not very impressive. They're not very moral. They're not very honest, etc. That doesn't mean that you don't have salvation or you're not that you're evil or that whatever. But yeah, okay. So if that is a thing, salvation. Okay. In fact, let's go back to salvation, and then move out to your own house. I thought to say to your own place, but I'd like to have a house. I don't... Own place leaves it very up in the air. It's like, oh, is that an apartment? I was horrified as a kid. Like, I'd watch Seinfeld. It's like, oh, Jerry lives in an apartment? How, like, sad. It's like, I'd look at Jerry Seinfeld. He's supposed to be a cool-looking guy in that show. Probably semi-relatable, but semi-cool. He's living in a fucking apartment. That sounds like a fucking horror scenario for me. No, I'd like a house. If I'm gonna be living somewhere. And they do say get specific about what you want. Now, here's the thing. I do feel like, I think a lot of what has blocked me from success, etc., from various things is that either I don't think I deserve it, or I think that, like, it's selfish to want it. Like, oh, a whole house for me. Like, I think there is some of that. Like, oh, you don't, that's materialistic, or like that's, you know, there'd be a lot of compromise in terms of your morals to get there, etc. That's fair. Maybe we'll do, because this is what we want and not just what we should, and I do feel like the house thing is becoming a should thing now. How about to your own house / domain? There we go. That's good. We can further, well, let's get the outcomes first and then we'll work on it. But we want the outcomes, all right? We want the actual, if you don't have a destination, then you're building some kind of map to nowhere, right? Here's the thing, if you're building a map or if you're planning something, wouldn't that imply a destination? And if it doesn't imply a destination, then it's not a plan. Then Scott might say it's a system. You might say it's something, but it's not really a plan. And it's like, well, Matt, do you like things the way they are, or would you like them to be different? Well, I think I'd like them to be a lot different. Okay, well, if you'd like them to be different, then what would you like? Well, if the answer is, well, I don't know, then it's like, well, maybe you'll just have what you have, right? All right, so let's go to town. This is probably going to be. This music's okay. We'll hang out here for a second. Okay, so we got salvation. It has an asterisk because, you know, you are okay, etc. I think salvation may be sort of a circular thing. In fact, salvation may be sort of the James True thing of mind control, where it's like they get you to believe you're broken. Salvation is basically like, I'm broken, but I could be fixed, right? Now, that said, though, salvation, it could even just be a change of place. Say we're in some kind of horrible prison firmament area, and there's an ice wall, and if you get out of there, like in the Truman Show, oh, Matt, oh, that's crazy. Oh, yeah, just the James, I thought I'd say James True or James Carrey. Just the Jim Carrey thing of, at the end of the fucking Truman Show, spoilers here, you know, maybe I'll put something on a screen. Actually, Matt, you should. That would be a good exercise here, but, if you do, but... Oh yeah, just at the end of the Truman Show, he gets to the edge of a fucking firmament, and then he bows and fucking walks out of it, and the entire thing is this huge metaphor. Yeah, oh yeah, there's no, and that was like years before Flat Earth came into prominence again. It's like, oh yeah, it's like if you want to call stuff crazy, I'd say go watch the whole Jim Carrey, you know, filmography and see what stuff they seem to be talking about there. And it's like, oh, Matt, just because the Truman Show seemed to have some metaphor for a flat Earth or the firmament, that means it's true. I'm just saying, I think that means that it's within the context of, at least it seems to be presented as a possibility by the society. And if you think movies don't seem to present possibilities and like don't actually tell you, well, these are specifically real, but that means that like they can't be possibilities. It's like, I don't know if you've watched enough movies. Check out Neo's ID's expiration date in The Matrix. That movie came out before the year that, let's just say the year that it expired. Okay, or the weight of the chair that Mel Gibson is building in The Patriot, which came out before the event that it seems to signify, right? There's stuff in movies, guys. All right. Not to mention that he falls through the chair. Ah! Right? Not to mention the Back to the Future stuff, Gremlins maybe, etc. Oh, Matt, this sounds crazy. Yeah, go check these movies out and tell me if it's likely that they all seem to be pointing towards a certain number that seems to, you know, be signified by other things in the movie as well, right? Okay. Oh, Matt, a number what, like 33? Well, no, a number a little more recognizable to most people, and not just because of the emergency dialing code. Okay, so what do we got? Twin Pines Mall, Lone Pine Mall. That seemed like anything. Twin Pines. What was it? 11. What? It was 11:6. No, it was 1:16, and then that's not even the half of it. Literally. Okay. Well, maybe it's more than the half of it for Back to the Future, but not for all movies. Oh, by the way, check out the people watching The Truman Show, in the movie The Truman Show, and they're all wearing these hats that are like strikingly red with white text on them. They look just like MAGA hats. Oh, that's there's a lot of predictive programming. There's a lot. You can say it's coincidence. You can say it's supernatural. You can say it's planned. Whatever you say it is, there's a lot there, and it's not these little movies. It's some of the biggest movies of all time. Well-funded movies. Well-funded movies with a lot of symbolic stuff in them, whatever you think about the hints, seemingly. Okay, so we got one with an asterisk, Salvation, because I'm not sure. Maybe you're not broken. Maybe salvation is just another way that they trap your mind. Maybe it's just more fear. However, maybe we're in some kind of. It does seem like things are really bad where we are in this area. And I don't just mean Rhode Island, but don't come here because you might get trapped here, right? But firmament, yeah. Basically, maybe there's some way out of the firmament. Who knew? Who knows? Maybe Jesus is offering you salvation, and perhaps it's simply I'm gonna yank your ass out of the fucking firmament. You're not gonna be. You're gonna look over at that dome over there and say, wow, there's a lot of horrible shit happening there. Anyway. So move out to your own house / domain. That's a big one. Salvation is the number one. We want to keep that as number one, but the shield goes along with that. Be honest, be good, and let go. What else do we have? Let's see. Oh, you know what? Another part of the shield, would that be good? No, I think this is good enough. Breathing is also a thing. Breathe if in fear, etc. That's helpful, but letting go, etc. Whatever. So what's the third? What's the third quest here? Move out to your own house / domain. I'd like to have a lot of money, but like I'm not really a big money guy, and it's like it's as Tony Robbins says, like a lot of the stuff is just basically to get to feeling states. You don't really want a lot of money. You want what you think money will give you. So what would I really like, and what am I ready to get behind? What would I really like, and what am I ready to get behind? What would I really like? What am I ready to get behind? Those are the good questions. Okay. Q3. Those are kind of the big things. You know what? Maybe those would be good enough. I don't know if I want to divert my resources too much. And obviously, the first one is huge, if it is needed. The second one is pretty freaking big. At least it would seem to be that way for me. Maybe it'd be easier than I think. It probably is easier than I think, but if I actually have a good plan. Third one, good, responsible way of resources. Good, responsible way of making resources. Perfect. All right. So that's the third one. That's good. And then 4, a wife. I'd like all those things. There we go. Okay. Get a wife now. It's like now. It's like, well, you know, that'd be nice, but I see. Here's the thing: I'd want a way to support her before that, and I'd want a house as well, and salvation as well. So that's a decent, because basically I don't want to live where I am, but foremost salvation. Second, I'd like to live somewhere else. Third, to live somewhere else, I'd want a good, responsible way of having the resources to live somewhere else. And fourth, with all that other stuff, then I can finally do that. If those other three things are tied into a nice bow, then the fourth thing should take care of itself. It should be so easy to have the fourth thing happen. I don't want to trivialize it because it's not trivial at all. But in terms of like the entrance fee, I have the entrance fee with the other things and with me. All right. You know what? How about 5? RPG life. That's good. RPG life. And then that one is number 4 is actually just a wife. Okay. Number 4 is a wife, and number 5 is RPG life. All right, great. Beautiful. So those are my outcomes. Now, I think it'd probably be good to stop here because I think basically we're probably not going to do a whole plan with these outcomes. And it's like, oh, see, Matt, you're stopping before you get to the plan part. You're not going to do the work. Well, you know, maybe I'll make a whole great plan today for it. But I think those are 5 outcomes I can get behind. And if those outcomes, those I actually would like, and those I can actually get behind, and those if those are all together, then I think my life's pretty great. My life's pretty great, period, now. All right, so after all that, my life's pretty great now.